Dog, and we've got one incredible broadcast for you right now. My good friend, Brett Sutherlin. I mean, we go back his childhood. I mean, I've known this guy forever. Brett Sutherlin of the Sutherlin dealerships and Jaime Drabczak. Did I get that right?
Close, Drabczak. It's close enough.
Okay, that counts
really
about
good.
50 points in Scrabble, you know.
There's that.
Okay, we're gonna have a really serious conversation today about how the Sutherlin organization saved $2.5 million annually, cutting out lead providers and third-party vendors. This ought to be a real interesting conversation. I'm gonna give it to Brett. Brett, start this conversation off. How did this all occur?
So I've had an idea, right, with how valuable are third-party providers. Now, Jim, you know, and you and I have had this conversation for years. They tell you that people start showing up in their showroom. They don't submit a lead. They don't, pick the phone up and call. They just come. Now, is there any truth to that? Maybe a little bit, but it's not to the level that they're claiming. Secondly, when I started looking at what Sutherlin was spending at 12 dealerships, I mean, it varied wildly from dealership to dealership to dealership, almost as if, how good of a negotiator was your general manager that signed that contract at the time?
Well, Brett, let's name some names. I'm talking about Autotrader, Cars.com, CarGurus. Is that the suspects?
All of the above, absolutely. We went into a deal with CarGurus and saw that, hey, one dealership was paying $6,800 for the exact same package that another was paying $3,800 for.
I've been saying that on broadcast for years. I mean,
I know you have, and part of what you've been saying led me to this. And when I started meeting with Jaime, and I said to Jaime, hey, let's talk vendors. This is well before she started working for us. And, she immediately got it. You have been saying this for years, Jim. You were saying Autotrader, same thing. I could be in the Atlanta market. I could be in a market with a similar size. We were paying, Jim,
Brett, you could be right across the street from a similar size dealership and pay thousands of dollars difference in what they're paying for Autotrader and you're paying.
Hey, Sutherlin Nissan Mall of Georgia, store you know well, Jim.
I know it.
$14,000 a month. And we're talking Autotrader, $14,000 a month. So, when we started really putting a pencil to it and we really did a deep dive into what they're doing, it was not in the best interest of the dealership. So let me elaborate. When someone Googles, a new Nissan Altima near me, and they get Sutherlin in the paid ads, and they get Autotrader above us because they're outbidding us for our name, and that customer lands on Autotrader versus Sutherlin Nissan,
that makes your pay-per-click more expensive.
It makes our pay-per-click more expensive, and they're targeting our name. They're using the name Sutherlin in order to get our customers to their site. Well, in Atlanta, Jim, as well as anyone, there's 28 Nissan dealerships in Atlanta. Well, all of a sudden, I'm playing. I enter the Autotrader site, and it's like Russian roulette. What dealership do they end up finding? Is it Gwinnett Place? Is it Regal? Is it, Nally? Is it Sutherlin? Right? So it's a very, very bad proposition, for them to target your own name to draw customers. Because guess what? Had you not been advertising with Autotrader, they wouldn't have been using your name, and odds are you would have gotten them to your website where you've got a captive customer.
And Jaime, check in on this.
So, what we wanted to do is to ask ourselves and start questioning what we were doing, right? Ask the questions, is there a better way to do things? And go into it with a theory, or as we like to say, a hypothesis, several of them. The first being that third-party leads, they're low quality and they're expensive. And when we started creating these, then we started looking at the data. Does the data support this or not? And Brett and I have heard ad nauseum from different people about, you have to be there. We hear it inside of our organization too. And what we understand is there's an emotional, visceral reaction to the way that the car business has always been done. We accept and we understand that, right? There's a fear of missing out because you're not participating. We made the strategic decision to say, we really don't know how much traffic from these other sources is driven to our show floor, are driven to our phones. We can see attribution.
Don't even talk to me about attribution.
I know how you feel about that. I know.
What a
get with me.
bogus
One
argument.
sec. No. I know. Like literal attribution from a form filling. That's really the only true direct data connection that we can make that doesn't require, again, analysis.
Exactly.
And so, in doing this, we went in with, what, maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. We still don't quite know yet. Does it make sense to, completely wipe out everybody? We don't have the data that lets us answer yes or no to that question yet. But the more important thing that we're focused on is, how can we do our business better? How can we take control back of our names, right, for our dealerships? And by clearing out the clutter, we're able to level set and see what happens without all of, the third party, leads coming in and or the third parties projecting out our
money on. We already mentioned CarGurus, Autotrader, Cars.com.
$200,000, Jim.
How much?
$200,000 a month for all of our stores. Between all of the third-party lead providers,
200,000 dealerships, 200,000 a month each.
That 12 dealerships, 2 of them are open points, Jim, that we're building.
Really, so unbelievable. I have always said that the lead providers are dinosaurs being sucked down in the tar pits, eating the last brown shriveled leaves off the trees. They're almost extinct.
And maybe they are, and maybe they aren't, right? I think the important thing is we continue to question, but we have to start evaluating the way that we're doing things. And, Brett has created an environment for us to ask any question. There's no theory, no question that is off the table in terms of what we'll do. And any other industry or any other business would go through it that way, where, again, I understand and I empathize from an emotional standpoint. People have, a connection to this because we've done it this way. We should always do it this way. I get it. Right. Where Brett has really encouraged me is to say, hey, let's just look at data. Let's look at data. What do we expect? What are we getting? How can we measure it? And I've asked, several of the, the lead companies, how, if you're going to come in and say that we're driving show floor traffic, how
they drive it? They're going to, and what they do, if you cancel one of them, and I promise you, I take it you have canceled them. And
all of them.
First thing they do is they fly the big gun in, and the big gun's going to show you some charts and graphs about attribution. And attribution says, well, we didn't get the lead, but we contributed to the lead. And they've got stats. And I always say, figures lie when liars figure.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And it's okay for them to say you contribute to it. That's great. And then my follow-up question is going to be, how and why do you say that? There has to be something in a data set somewhere that would have you say such a thing. If you recall years and years and years ago, when Autotrader first came out, right, it was all about the lead, right? Because we didn't have the analytics that, that we have today with, contribution of our traffic. So it was, we could see a lead form. Well, when we saw lead forms start to go down, then it was, but we're driving show floor traffic. Knowing darn well that as dealers, listen, we're responsible, that we don't have the type of data that we should have about our traffic, because a show floor opportunity, right, it requires somebody to actually enter it in. I understand that. but because we couldn't measure it, then they start using that. And I just think we fall for this every time. And Jim, part of, what you and I have discussed is making decisions, right? We don't want to be in an indecisive mode. I would rather be in a decision mode, but I would rather have an informed decision. But I would prefer, and what's best for our business is to have an educated decision, which requires us to learn, to ask questions, to learn, to understand, all of these different components. And that's what we're spending our time and our energy and our resources is learning so that we can do things in a better way.
Jamie, it's a real shame because now that you've canceled them, all your business has gone to hell. You don't have any sales. It's just, they told you that.
They did.
They told you when you cancel us, you're going to go to hell and you're not going to sell any cars. What happened?
Hey, Jim, this is interesting, but and Jamie, you'll recall this. Was it cars.com you were talking to when they told you that they've never had a dealer cancel, so that they don't really understand what's next?
No, they didn't say that. They didn't say that.
We've never had a dealership or dealer group cancel all third parties. Okay, well, great. We're the trailblazers.
Oh, come on. Come on. I personally have caused dealers to cancel. And we didn't have the statistics you guys have. You have researched this and proven your point.
So far, it's leading to proof that here's what it's leading to. There's proof out there in the data, and we're seeing it, that there are better ways of doing things. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that are there all these, opportunities out there for vendors and they should be off the table? No, because I'm not that myopic in thinking. Again, I don't have an emotional reaction to it. I have a data reaction to it. And, when we clean out the house, we get a level set, then we can start looking at, okay, well, where are the deltas happening? Where are we seeing drop off? Is it process? Is it market? And we're creating these different pinpoints that are also then telling us, we know we have process improvements that we have to make. And that's the beauty of this, regardless of what happens, is we're looking inwards. How do we improve the way that we do business? And no matter what leads come in or where we're getting our opportunities, we're still doing better in business.
What's generating most of your leads today?
Well, it's our website traffic.
I bet you, and I haven't talked to you before. I'll bet you it was always generating that traffic.
Of course, absolutely.
Of course.
It was all coming off your website always.
Listen, Jim, the only benefit, in my opinion, it's a disservice when your third parties are buying your name and targeting you, right? If third parties had a package where they say, hey, we're not going to target the name Sutherlin Nissan Mall of Georgia, would I be interested in that? Yes, because let me explain. If I'm looking for a 2000, if somebody's looking for a 2020 Toyota Camry and they click on the Autotrader link to start looking at cars that Toyota Mall of Georgia has, which is across the street from us. Do I want my Toyotas to show up? I do. What I don't want is third parties to cannibalize my name in order to bring us to their site. Would I like to be able to say, hey, I would use Autotrader at a very, very reduced package to have the Sutherlin cars on there. So if someone starts looking for a 2020 Toyota Camry, and I've got 3 of them, they see my cars. Yes, I would absolutely do that because, listen, we know that Autotrader, that CarGurus.
Did we lose Brett?
Oh, we lost his signal. He'll be back. Sometimes he gets shoddy. I'll finish up what he's saying. We know that on CarGurus, on Autotrader, on these sites that, for dealerships, they bring in that additional traffic with pre-owned vehicles. We know how important, pre-owned vehicles are. And so for us, we don't want to take anything off the table. So I don't want anyone to get an idea that anything is off the table. It isn't, right? But we want to make educated decisions on what we're doing and recognize that we have our segmentation of our traffic and our goals. And meaning, okay, we've got our new car strategy. I think, back up just a minute, as car dealers, we've taken this marketing strategy and it's been a marketing strategy, right? Versus drilling down and being super intentional about, okay, my new cars, right? This is where I know I have, a captive market. What am I doing here? What am I doing for my certified pre-owned? And then what am I doing for my off brands? And with our off brands, to me, segment it down even further to say, which off brands do I have, in my competitive zone? Which off brands do I not? Because the cadence of traffic, whether it's organic or not, are going to vary based upon the market conditions. And that's what we're learning. And we're trying to say, no matter what, we want to be efficient with every dollar that we're spending and maximize return. And Brett, you can pick up, I kind of filled in a little bit on your thought on CarGurus and the idea with pre-owned.
Yeah, I have no idea what just happened to my phone, but anyway, keep going, Jamie.
Okay, and so when we segment, again, from a marketing strategy, instead of it just being this dealership, we want to look at each bucket, right? And when we start looking at each bucket, we can tailor not only our spend to it, but our responses. If we look at new vehicle e-com opportunities and what the industry accepted closing rate is, it's different than our pre-owned. It's different than our CPO. So then why are we treating it as all the same? And so what we're doing is, again, we have a hypothesis. We go in and say, based on my knowledge, my experience, here's what I think might be happening. And, Brett will say, okay, here's what I think might be happening, with his technical, knowledge, background, et cetera. And we start putting that together and say, well, let's learn this. Let's figure out, is this happening? Is it not
happening? Does a dealership have to be technical to comprehend what we're doing here?
Think might be.
No, I mean,
no.
You don't. What about when Autotrader, cars.com? Cars.com's big thing. Well, they landed on your VDP. The first thing I hear is they landed on your car, your vehicle display page.
And okay, so we'll take that as an example. And Jim, I think you and I kind of talked a little bit about this. Did. So great. Yeah, thank you. Okay, super. Now what? Okay, I'm not in the business of VDP views. If I could take VDP views to the bank, great, but I can't. And so my question back on VDPs is, okay, you say that, but so what?
But it's a lie, Jamie. I exposed this lie 15 years ago. It's not a VDP. They tell you it's a VDP, but it's a picture of a VDP on their website.
Well, yeah, that's what I was.
Or Brady's having some technical situation, but so it's a picture of a VDP on their website. I mean, it's on the cars.com website. It's not on your own website. Right. So it's a picture of a VDP. And here's the kicker. There are 5 other dealers' units right next to your VDP. Right next to your VDP, they're serving up all these other units. That's where cars.com and I got into 15 years ago.
Yep. Agreed. And I know Brett will speak to that because that really is, his area of genius is looking at on websites, the importance of driving traffic to our websites. That, when you have, okay, just as you said, Jim, a picture on somebody else's website, they're getting that click, or if they didn't have our inventory, they wouldn't have that traffic that came to their website. And so as we look, no matter what, we want to spend less and get more. I don't want to pay for something that should be free. And when we look at some of these connection points with what organic traffic we should have, what these third parties are cannibalizing, you can't help but think, my goodness, I paid you to list my inventory to drive traffic to your website, send it back to my website. Like, we get
and send it back to cannibalize off your website, send it back to you and charge it for it. So in other words, let me paraphrase this. they're renting you back your own customers.
And that's what we want to find out. Is it, we have a theory, or again, a hypothesis we want to vet out, is that truly happening? And to what level are we okay with that happening? Is there a level that we're okay with that happening at or not? And at least we understand and we know, instead of just going in, again, just whoa, if we sell one car, it pays for it, right? Well, I just can't accept that. I just can't accept that, because there's unintended consequences. And Brett, I know, can talk, more to that in terms of, what it does to organic traffic. Like, we should be the authorities in our market. We shouldn't be competing for rank with these companies that we pay to list our inventory. The only reason why they're there is because we paid them to list our inventory that got them to rank.
Okay.
Yeah, no
The sidebar's lighting up. We got a lot of viewers on the show. Some of the points I'm seeing right here. George Spat, he says, I'm hearing you don't mind paying for additional business. You just don't want to pay for the business you would have received anyway. Is that a good paraphrase of what you're saying?
Well, yes, it's absolutely what we're saying. Like,
and John Stapleton, we all know that rascal. He's on the sidebar. Okay, it says smart Google ads have eliminated much of the value of third-party providers. Driving higher quality leads. Now that's the other thing, higher quality leads. We know for a fact that leads have a percentage of possibility of closing, from 3 to 18%. I mean, leads are quantified qualitatively. I mean, so there's some leads that have a 3% chance of closing, and other leads have an 18% closing. And these lead providers know which ones they're selling you. They know it. And if you cancel them, and during the cancellation period, all of a sudden they start pumping in a bunch of these 18% leads and say, I told you our shit worked. And all of a sudden, and they pump in a bunch of these 18% leads and you think they're working. They know what they're selling you. Brett, address that.
Well, listen, I want to go back a second. I was having some connection issues, but I want to talk about what you were saying, because you hit the nail on the head, Jim, with VDP views.
Oh, VDPs are illusion.
There's zero VDP views. They're not on your website. They're on their website.
On their website.
That is the biggest misnomer in the history of this, and it's been going on forever. They've never been on Sutherlin's site. They're on Autotrader or Cars.com site. That is your big issue. So, and then as far as leads and closing percentages, I mean, we can tell you firsthand that with a, call it 25% reduction in leads, Jim, this is pretty telling. We did see less leads, no question, because they give you junk to make sure that they can
3% leads. Yeah.
Well, listen, with a 25% reduction in leads, Jim, and our stores sell a lot of cars.
I know it.
We sold 6 less vehicles.
6 less vehicles, and that doesn't justify $200,000 a month.
It doesn't justify $200,000 a month. That's correct.
No, and the other part we talked about this too, that comes into play here, is that while we're going through this isn't just an expense cutting exercise. Okay, it's a portion of it. Really, what it is, it's a house cleaning exercise that allows us to look inwards, because I get there's a lot of companies out there, supportive companies of, car dealerships. I accept that, right? I'm not diminishing all of them. We also have to be responsible for what our portion is. And as we're going through this, we're monitoring and we're measuring and we're analyzing data, but it's not just to decide, do we keep doing this? Do we not? What it also is doing is saying internally, what are we doing to ensure that we're getting maximized return? Jim, you hit it on the head. You can have this varying degree of, of a closing rate, right? But once you look at, okay, I have two-way communication, you know, with an e-com opportunity in particular, right? What am I closing at, and where can we improve on that? And then one other thing that's really funny is about some of these lead providers that I think there's some people don't quite realize. When you participate in certain manufacturer programs, the third-party lead programs, they're taking those same leads and they're selling them to the manufacturer, who is taking them and selling them to you. So get this.
The leads
Here's how
are in
this.
the market.
Here's how
The
this.
leads are in the market. The leads are in the market.
Right, and it's a Ponzi
Okay,
scheme.
okay.
I paid you to
Stacey
advertise.
Battistini is on this on the sidebar here. She's the development manager at Scott Honda, Westchester. She says, when did you cancel the third parties? What time frame have you allowed yourself to drill down and examine the data and determine the true efficacy?
So we officially canceled. Everything was done as of March 21st. And so we are currently in that evaluation period. So we have the baseline set from pre. We're in almost 1 month in a couple of days to see what happens. So that's kind of where
everybody's
we're at
asking
right
the
now.
same question. Here's another same question again. Eric Ewald dealerships. So we got a lot of dealer principals and business development. We got a huge audience right now, huge audience. Steve Bayless decided to write a book here. Okay. A centralized lead funnel. Okay. I don't understand that. Decipher that for me. You're the tech here, Jamie.
And basically, no matter what, it's okay. Auto groups, because of, he's talking from a macroeconomy standpoint, is that because we have the numbers, right? There's availability to say, can we create a system whereby we're putting, you know, all of our opportunities as an auto group, leveraging our size into, you know, a centralized bucket that would say, where can we maximize the return from? So, and I don't disagree necessarily with that. And those are some of the things through this process that as dealers, we can learn, how can we be self-sufficient? And there's another kind of subset of our hypothesis that Brett is teaching me more about, you know, the digital world. I know automotive, right? And so then it brings up other questions. And I start thinking about what happens if Google changes algorithms, right? What happens to some of these third parties? Like, we're not going away because we're the cat dealerships. We're the ones spending the huge amounts of money, you know, from an SEM perspective. We're not going away. Some of them could, if things are changed. If Google decides to get in the business where they're going to have, you know, captive and not let these other third-party companies rank because they have backlinks instead of actual being experts in the industry, then where are we at if we haven't figured out a way to sustain ourselves?
Well, you know, some of these third-party providers have been scraping inventory off of dealers' websites. Brent, you brought something up a minute ago, and I hope you will expand on it. They're selling the leads. Where are they selling the leads?
Well, so the biggest thing people don't know about is these manufacturers, they will sell the leads back to the manufacturer. I mean, to give you an example, I mean, if you sign up for the Nissan lead program and we're paying, you know, $50 per lead, there's a great chance they're getting those from Autotradercars.com, et cetera, a whole plethora of third-party providers, and they're turning around paying Autotrader $20 for them. You know, it goes back, Jim. I mean, it goes back to the whole manufacturer discussion where, and I know you and I have talked about this, the whole shift digital. You know, Shift is kind of the circus leader, right?
Okay, well, Shifty Digital, I'm well familiar with them. You know, I love that. Okay.
But yeah, manufacturers are getting money from Shift. Manufacturers are also getting money from, you know, from all these third parties.
What about Detroit Trading Company?
That's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Now, Detroit Trading Company is a broker that buys and sells leads. Is that true? I believe it is.
Absolutely. Are they still in business, Jim? I know that.
Well, let me Google them up. I got it. I'm a high tech old guy here. Let's see here. Detroit.
But as you're doing that, Jim, think about this. So here's the funny part, right? We have Autotrader. We pay Autotrader. Autotrader markets in our area because listen, they already have the technology built out, right? So what they're collecting money for is marketing. So they're marketing our cars in our area, right? We're spending more to market our cars in our area because we're spending money with the third party to market our cars in our area. Then they take, because our cars in our area, we're paying for them. They get the leads coming in there. They turn and they give them possibly to other people, right? But then they turn and they sell them to the manufacturer, right? Then the manufacturer turns and sells those to us. So it's like at some point you just want to segment, all of this out and see, is it a big Ponzi scheme or not? I don't know for sure.
What is that, Brett?
Oh,
Yep.
The largest marketplace for automotive transactions. They buy and sell leads. Look at this. I mean, there's Detroit Trading Company.
looks like they need someone to manage their social
Well,
media.
yeah, this is on Facebook, but they're still definitely out there.
Yeah.
And people don't realize your leads are being brokered and bought and sold, and all these companies. You ever get the same lead from 3 lead providers? Have you ever had the same lead provider give you the 3 leads? That's because your leads are on the market out there, and they're all buying the same leads and selling them back to you, what they scraped off your website originally.
Right. And that's what we're looking at. And we, with CRMs nowadays, those are the types of data connection points that we're looking at. Because listen, as dealers, the shiny object is the amount of leads, right? First. And then it is, okay, then we just look to how many are sold instead of looking at, okay, what's the quality of the lead? You brought this up.
Here's Steve Bayless again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quantity and a quality
thing. We don't
have
rated A to 4A. He's right. Leads are rated A to 4A. Who gets the 4A leads? Those are the 3% leads with a 3% possibility of closing. The A leads have a 17 or 18% possibility of closing. They buy those, and they're already rated from the brokerage that sold them to them. The brokerage sold the leads. They sold them A leads and 4A leads, and they know which ones they serve the dealer. Am I making sense, Brett?
Right.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. Jim, how long?
Here's my next question. Think of, why is it a 3 or a 4A versus a 1A then? That's my next question, because we could just stop and say, okay, this is going to close at 3. This is going to close at 18. Give me the 18. Instead, for me, I'm going to start thinking, well, wait, what a part of what they're doing is allowing them. There's either a mathematical equation, right? Or there's a hypothesis of what we're doing that says this is classified this way.
Well,
we look at it like
a 3% lead would be somebody that went to an auto show and signed a raffle to win a car. That's a 3% lead.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, I do, but that's what I want to know. Okay, so
that's a 4A lead. A 1A lead, an 18% lead is somebody that is an in-market buyer.
Right. And what does that company determine as an in-market buyer? What criteria are they using? Because then I want to take that information and we want to discuss it, and then we want to execute our own strategy that allows us to do the same thing for less money.
CarGurus generally will have the number 1 position in Google in most markets. I mean, depending on the key AdWords, the words that you really put in there, that the things you put in, CarGurus is going to come up number 1, and you're competing with these people, and they're selling you your own customers back. What SEO and what SEM are you using to replace the lead providers? That's what I'm curious about. You cut $2.5 million out of your ad spend. What are you doing to replace
Brett, you want to go or do you want me to
Well,
go?
no, we have a conscious effort on SEO, but we have a very conscious effort on paid search. We're really diving in and writing content and doing things the correct way where Google will rank us and we can improve our organic rank. I mean,
social media marketing. Are you investing in that?
Of course, absolutely. 100%. Jim, how long have you been yelling this? I mean, how many years have you been, I mean, out of curiosity.
I started when I had the war with TrueCar. And, you know, when I went to war with TrueCar, that was 2011, maybe. I don't remember the year, but it was a while back. And I organized the entire industry, allegedly. Allegedly, I didn't do it. Allegedly, I organized the industry, and Scott Painter, the head of TrueCar, flew to Atlanta and begged me to back off, and we got a new plan. I took them to Papa Do's of all places. I made that California Lily eat alligator tail, and we went to Papa Do's, and he said something to me that was just the most significant compliment I've ever received. Brett, Jaime, he said to me, "We considered buying you off, but we knew it couldn't be done." What a great compliment. I have had so much integrity through my career that we considered buying you off, but we knew we couldn't do it. So anyway, the Federal Trade Commission said I organized a national boycott, and it cost me $50,000 in legal fees and other to get out of that. You know, because the Federal Trade Commission came after me for coming after TrueCar. Oh, so that's how far back it goes, Brett. And right behind that, cars.com, and I got into it. And, you know, and that was another, I had 178,000 comments on the blog.
That's crazy.
So you
know, there's another interesting thing that I want to bring up for conversation that we're also seeing with this process, and it's probably something that many aren't thinking about because we're stuck on the quantity that we're getting in, right? When we don't have processes in place, the quantity can overwhelm the entire system, right? And it's like drinking from a hose. You know, when you're thirsty, I get it, right? It's satisfying, but at some point it's going to have a reverse effect. And the data is showing us by having a less quantity of lead, we're able and actually spending more time and attention on that e-com opportunity instead of it just being try to beat the clock, right? I want to beat the clock so that I stop the clock. You know, it turns it from a task-driven thing to a relationship-driven thing. So I'll be interested to see, you know, what comes from this. We're looking at response times, and Jim, you and I had this conversation, and Brett and I have been having it for quite a while in terms of customer experience, right? Our customer satisfaction scores. Is there a correlation that ties back to, you know, a better customer experience when we started off from the very first interaction, which typically now is coming from an e-com, a phone, or one of our campaigns? Are we seeing a correlative data that says that when we spend more time, we're going to have better scores? I'm still working out what that formula looks like in my brain, but I there's something there. I know it's there. I just don't know exactly what yet. But for sure, we're already seeing higher closing rates because we're not trying to stop the clock because we have so many leads coming in that you can't handle all of that.
Okay, here's a question from Asan Charanea. I couldn't pronounce your name right. Apology. Have you tried using GPT-4 API on your CRM? I don't even know. I don't even know what all those letters mean personally. I'm not that technological.
No, not yet. What we're using are the traditional methods and cadences of communication. You know, first trying to establish a two-way communication.
Are you doing any traditional media? I mean,
Mhm.
television,
at some cars.
radio, and any,
Yes.
I can't help but see Linda Beaver on TV every day here in Atlanta. And the bow tie guy. So I'm wondering what we're doing.
Yeah, we're on TV, radio, all the traditional media. Absolutely.
Fantastic. I've seen some of your spots. So you haven't lost a whole lot of business eliminating the lead providers.
We lost 6 deals we lost, yeah, I mean 6. Was it 6, Jamie? It sold 6 less cars than we did the prior month.
Than the prior month. But what I looked at, that was month over month. But when we looked at, and it's hard comparing it to last year's same time period, but we did it anyways, just to, again, we're just looking for connections in the data. And April 2022 over April 2023, we had 248 less leads come in during that same time period, but we sold 10 more cars. And part of that, yes, I mean, we have less leads, but we can see by clearing the decks and focusing in, right? We took a close rate of 4% and brought it to 7%. Now, again, I get it. Like, that's not crashing, breaking any records. We have some outliers of stores, but it still is saying we darn near doubled what our closing rate is, because we're becoming so much more intentional about what we're doing. So again, this process
here's a great question. It was a question I've been thinking myself. Here it comes.
Sure.
Suzanne Rimmer, what is the cost per car sold comparison? I think this is going to be a big positive.
Well, it is. So the hard part is that question is looking at an entire subset, of that data, which we did. But what we also do is we broke it down by source, because we want to understand incremental sales, right? In terms of
by
the spend.
By store, that makes sense.
Exactly. And when we looked at it, we first looked at a cost per lead, and why it's, I didn't want to get into this philosophical conversation about sold part, but
I'm sorry.
I want a cost per lead. No, it's okay. It's okay. Brett, are you good with me just having this conversation about the cost per lead? So the cost per sold it's a misleading thing. And why I don't like that number in particular is if you have traffic that's driven on, say your aged cars, right? And all of a sudden, your cost per sold is a negative, $1,200. Are you going to tout that as much as you are with the success of it? And so oftentimes, if we believe, and this is just saying, if we believe that customers who send in an inquiry, X% of time don't end up on that vehicle, then why do we want to count that lead, directing to that sale? I think it's more of, what the lead company, to evaluate the lead company, how many leads are they driving versus how many you're paying, which is our cost per lead number. And we had a range of cost per lead from $34, the roughly $34 range, all the way up to, in some cases, and this is just absolutely crazy, up to over $2,000 per lead. I mean, which is just crazy, because ultimately your third parties, they don't come and sell cars unless the rep or somebody is coming in and selling cars, giving a sold attribution or dollar amount to that third party. I think it's just for us, I believe it's the wrong measurement. So we were looking at, again, cost per lead, but then also two-way communication. So first, how does the third party do in terms of driving traffic? Secondly, what does that traffic look like?
Okay, I don't know if this is a question we're interested in. The biggest question, and this is Larry Little, friend of mine, general manager. The biggest question I have: leads filtered through a BDC or work by a salesperson. That two philosophies. How are you handling that? Both. So different stores.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Highlines, imports? How do you determine that?
It's more, well, Brett, if you want to have.
Yeah, it's just it's whatever the dealership general manager has set up, right? It's several have BDCs, Several have their smaller stores have their sales staff run with it. So two different thoughts here.
Okay, Brett, what else have we not told people that we really need to get out in this broadcast?
Jim, I think the big question is we need more time to measure results. In all fairness to third-party providers, can people find a car on their website and show up? Absolutely. Are there packages that where these people won't bid on your name to bid against you? I haven't seen one. And I think that's something that would be of interest to all of us, because, to say that there's zero value is not fair and it's not accurate. But, it's the underhanded tactics to bring people to a third party site versus your own that I have a big problem with.
Okay, this lady, Suzanne Reamer, she's a vice president at LotLinks. She's I don't think we've mentioned LotLinks on this program. Were you using them?
We are not.
Okay, I didn't think you were from the conversations we've had. But yeah, she's a vice president of LotLinks. LotLinks only differentiates themselves as they do not do VDPs on their own website. They put the customer on the dealer's own website. That's their only differentiation. What else have we not told people, Jaime?
Well, I think it's, again, the title, it draws people in, right? How we saved $2.5 million on, ditching the third party leads.
We got a huge audience.
I know. It's marketing at its finest, of course. But I think the key to this is, and we've talked a lot about, what do we hope to get out of this? It isn't just an expense saving measure. Again, while we're learning about our business and about our markets and perhaps different ways of doing things, yes, we're saving over $200,000 a month, right? Until we shore up the way that we do things and see, does it make sense to have this? Does it not? Right? Why waste the money? And I think from a whole, what I would love people to take away from this is start asking questions. It's okay to be scared to do something different. I understand that emotional reaction, but you're not going to learn anything new or different about your business. Maybe there is a better way to do things. We get so dialed into it's the car business. This is how we've always done it. How about just say, what if we do it differently? What if we do it differently? Can we? And maybe the answer is, okay, it doesn't work differently. And that's okay too. At least you tried something.
Well, how much are you maximizing your website? I always ask dealers, have you really paid attention to Google My Business? What do they call it? Google Places now or something like that to change the name?
Yeah, Google Business Profile. Yes, we have a full-time person that manages it.
Do you have your departments separated legally? And have you met all the Google requirements? People don't realize there's things you can do that are already in place that will drive traffic. I mean,
drive a lot of traffic. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing I see dealers neglect is Google. And I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face with Jaime. I mean, that is the most important thing you can do to drive traffic, drive phone calls, and get people to your website fully.
Put a lot of photography on it. A lot of photography.
Oh, photography, content. You can absolutely go after 21 sub-cities of the area that you're in. I mean, there's so much you can do through, Google Business Profile. It's unbelievable.
Well, the other thing is, of course, I go to dealers' websites and there's no mention of their service department or just a slight mention. I mean, if I owned a dealership today, I would have multiple pages of service department information, multiple pages.
Absolutely. And that's part of the process that we're going through from a content standpoint, because we don't want to build content just to trick Google in, giving us that traffic for free. What we're hoping to have come out of it is to have exactly, to be the resource for car buyers when they're researching, buying a car, but also servicing and maintaining their cars. I agree, Jim. Fixed ops is one of those areas that is so neglected, but it's our highest traffic department. We see the most customers in our service lanes. Like, can you imagine all these cars coming through our service lanes and we're not putting any time and attention on it, not just from marketing, but there's also some additional strategies that we'll come back to tell you about as it direct our service lane. But
Well, it's amazing because more than 50% of most dealerships service business did not buy the car from that dealership.
Right.
More than 50% of most dealerships, the people coming in your service department are conquest customers that you can convert to a sale next time if you do retro advertising to it. I see dealers not recognizing that,
No, and it's data, right? Just like everything else. Like this, I can assure you that what we're working on with, like I said, with the fixed ops and with the service department in particular, it will blow your mind. It will blow your mind. So you thought it was a big deal with third-party leads? Just wait. I can't wait to see what your headline is when you bring us on to talk about what we have coming next.
Okay, Ryan Wood, last question. Do you need to partner with a third-party lead generation to drive campaigns in the variable space, but to fix the F&I? I don't understand the entire question. Do you get what he's asking?
I don't.
So do you find any?
Jim.
Well, we don't partner with people that don't work for us. We have vendors that we have relationships with, but internally we have strategies to handle, like I said, the fixed op side and our SEM side.
Well, let me Zieglerism on that. No dealer is your partner. They're people you do business with.
Agree.
They're not your partner. They're not.
Agree.
If your dealership was to go into financial trouble, are they going to share the expense? No, they're not your partner. They're people you do business with, and they are at odds with your interest in many instances. They're not your partner.
They are, but keep in mind, you can have a good relationship still. Partnership, vendorship, that's fine. Whatever you're called or referred to, we can still have a good, fruitful, symbiotic relationship.
When they come in and say, "I'm your partner," that turns me off. When I was top management dealerships and the vendors would call on me, "Well, we want to partner with." No, you don't. You're not my partner. You're never going to be my partner.
Jim, I was on this call on an episode with you where we discussed that in depth. But I will tell you, I absolutely love Jaime's new term. We're in a vendorship.
A vendorship. That's like a bromance.
It's a vendorship.
We're in a vendorship.
Yeah.
We have oh my God, we've almost burned through an hour. We're down to the 52 minute mark already.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be sure we don't leave anything on the table. Have we said everything we want to say?
I think so. I think that, I guess my last part is having the courage to go out and ask these questions. It doesn't mean that you have to be right. It doesn't mean that you have to be wrong. As long as you're learning something better, something more about your business, it isn't an exercise in futility. Okay, we just happened to, maybe took a little bit different of approach. And if it wasn't the appropriate approach collectively, fine. If it wasn't the proper approach for a certain market or a certain brand, fine. We're going to at least know that. And we're learning so much through this process that, again, I would encourage anybody, just start thinking critically about your business. Step back from the emotion just a little bit. Ask logical questions and, come up with a crazy theory. Use a Six Sigma approach to go through what the opportunity or the problem is and see if there is an improvement that can be made. Have no fear.
And I will end with one thing, Jim. If anyone is interested in entering into a vendorship with Sutherlin, Jaime's your girl. Don't send any more questions to me about that.
There is a video. I was just looking for it on YouTube. There is a video that I made years ago, and it is about cars.com, and it's gotten, I don't know, a million views. I don't know, it's got a ton of views, but there's a video I made back in 2011 or 12 about cars.com, and it's gotten thousands. And I looked at it the other day before this broadcast, and everything I said then is still true. They haven't reformed in any way.
So, Jim, you're probably surprised that we're in 2023 now, that Sutherlin is the first cancellation that cars.com has ever received.
I got some lakefront property to sell you, big guy. There's a bridge. I own this bridge. Oh, unbelievable. Well, let's say goodbye to the audience, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.